guys, we are back for part 2 on our our colored pencil sphere. I think I said that last time too, man. Okay, so what we did in our first one was we did a couple of layers of our 3 colors, our 3 analogous colors. Today I am using an aqua green, a blue, and then a navy blue. So basically it's kind of like a blue, green, a blue, and then an even darker blue. Okay, so this is where I'm at so far. I'm gonna go ahead and start building up the layers on this. So I'm going to use my lightest color here first. I'm using light pressure, and I'm gonna start kind of building up some of the layers using just this one first. Okay, so I am adding layers here all the way through, and I want to make sure that I'm keeping my shading in here with my colored pencil kind of nice and tight. So I want it to be super close together. I don't want it to be super spread out because then I end up with more of a texture than what I really want. Okay, so I'm working lightly with this color. I'm kind of going in an oblong shape, almost like a really skinny zero. And I'm keeping it kind of close together. So that means that I stay in the same area for a little bit before I move on. I don't try to cover a ton of space super quickly, because that's one way to get a texture that you weren't trying to get. Right? We want it to be nice and smooth. And right now mine looks a little bit rough, but that's how all early colored pencil drawings do. So adding this through here. You can see that it's getting a little bit darker along this area, and that's just because I'm adding another layer. I'm not pressing super hard. I'm only adding another layer to this to help it become more saturated, to help blend it. Okay, so I'm not pressing hard at all. I'm using kind of a medium light pressure on this. Okay. And so the closer I get to my highlight though, the lighter I want to be. Okay, so I'm over here coloring in medium light. And as I get a little bit closer here to this lighter area, I'm going to lighten up my pressure, right? So I'm not going to press quite as hard around here. Okay, again, I'm going kind of in this oblong circular motion. I'm using the side of my lead on my pencil here. And I'm just building up a little bit at a time. Colored pencils are all about the patience and the layers. As long as you've got some patience and some time to do the layers, you're in. Okay, so I'm gonna add a couple more layers of this color, and I'll be back here in just a minute. All right, so I'm back here. I've added a layer using a light pressure the whole way around. You can notice that it's a little bit more of a blue-green. Now I'm gonna go in with my regular blue color. This is my middle blue, and I am going to do the same thing. So I'm kind of covering the same areas, just using a medium light pressure on this to kind of build this up and add some more depth to it. Okay, so I'm adding in on my middle color here, and I'm just using light pressure because I want to maintain smooth transitions the whole time. Okay, so I don't want to draw any lines. I don't want to color like this so that I end up with a line. Okay, I'm just adding in a kind of a bubbly fashion, I guess, with light pressure, building these up a little bit at a time. Okay, I'm still kind of working in a general C shape direction, but I'm not adding too much on here too fast. Very important. Okay, so I'm going to keep adding this in here, kind of going in my C shape, nice and light. The closer I get to my highlight, the lighter my pressure is going to be. And I am going to take my middle color up here a little bit, just because it helps with the blending. So you don't end up with a section that looks very green. You more end up with a section that looks just slightly different. Okay, so I build this up here, keeping it nice and smooth. I like to kind of change the direction that my colored pencil is going the whole time. That way I don't end up with very obvious lines. Just kind of work at it here. All right. So I am bringing this up here just a little bit further, using light pressure. Okay, and you can already see that we're getting much more color on here. Okay, I'm going to start back over here on the darker area, still using this medium color, and I'm going to kind of use a medium, a more medium pressure. Okay, so you can see it's getting a little bit darker there. And I don't want to, again, I don't want to go too dark too fast. So I'm just adding a little bit here along the edge. I don't want to go all the way around, but I do want to kind of darken it up here. And then I'm going to bring this layer of value, this darkness here. So I'm bringing it forward. Again, I want to be very cognizant about having lines. I don't want to have anything that looks super liney, so I'm going to kind of change the direction. And I'm shading in a little bit as I go. And I'm just building this up a little bit more. Okay. So you want to make sure that when you're shading in with your darker colors, that you bring your shadow all the way up here compared to your highlight. Okay, this is going to help your picture look more like a three-dimensional sphere. It's going to give it a little bit more life to it and make it look a little bit more realistic, like maybe it actually exists in the world and didn't come from your brain, than if you were to bring it to have your shadow only here. It just kind of helps it out a little bit more on your paper. Okay, so I'm adding these layers in here. Okay, let me go a little bit lighter here in this section. Just adding a little bit of the blue at a time. I'm going to bring it even closer up here, just so lightly. It's so subtle, you can hardly see it. But it's there. Even if your eyes don't fully pick up on it, you can kind of see the difference between one sphere that has only one color up here and a sphere that has very well blended colors up here. Okay, so that's looking pretty good so far. I'm going to go ahead and go again, second layer with my blue here, just to kind of add a little bit more to it. And I'm going to do that off camera, so I will be right back. All right, so I got that extra layer done. I'm going to go on to my last color, my third color, which again for mine was kind of a navy blue color. And I'm going to start on the darkest part right over here. And I'm going to start just shading in light pressure. So this whole time, the hardest pressure that I've used while I'm coloring, so that's how hard I've been pressing down with my colored pencils as I've been coloring through here, has been not more than a medium light pressure. And I'm still only using a medium light pressure for this. Okay, it's just getting darker because I'm adding more layers to it and I'm also using my darkest color now. Okay, so I'm just adding this here, keeping it nice and smooth. So you know that I'm adding layers to this. It's just not super obvious where I'm putting it, because it's so blended in. And that's the way that we want our spheres to look. We want it to be much more subtle than what you might think. A lot of things in the natural world are more subtle than what we think they are. So I'm bringing this here, kind of working throughout this, going opposite directions, bringing this further up here a little bit. Okay, and I'm actually going to come up here in this area too, using a super light pressure. Okay, again, when you use your colors throughout a piece, right, whether this is a sphere or a drawing that you're doing in colored pencil, if you repeat colors over and over again throughout, it will make your art piece look a lot more unified because it has a common color scheme. It looks like it all belongs together that way. Okay, so I'm adding this in here. I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm just lightly shading up here. Okay, and again, I always want to make sure that I'm kind of going the opposite direction. Okay, back and forth so that I have a smoother texture, which you guys can kind of see that here. And also it helps me cover up any white spaces that are showing through on my paper. If you only color in one direction, sometimes it's really hard to get it, but sometimes if you go and color in the opposite direction, it fills in those white spaces even better. Okay, so again, only using medium light pressure so far, I'm building this up a little bit at a time. Okay, now I'm going to go in here with my lightest color. So again, out of my three colors, my kind of aqua green color is my lightest. And I'm going to start on the darkest area though. This time I'm going to come in with a kind of a medium pressure to it. I'm going to color over my whole sphere, but remember, the closer I get to my highlight, the lighter pressure I need to have. Okay, so I'm coloring using medium. Can you see the color that's starting to pop here? Okay, so I'm just overlapping and layering this because it helps make it look like it all belongs together. It's all one piece. Okay, so I'm using kind of a medium pressure here. I might switch back between medium and medium light as I go through, depending upon the darkness that is needed for the sphere. Okay, so I'm going in medium pressure. When I get up here a little bit, I'm going to lighten it up to medium light pressure, or maybe just light pressure. And again, I'm slowly building up these layers here. The further away I get from the highlight, the harder I can press down. Okay, I just don't want to end up with something, I don't want to have a regret texture. Okay, so I don't want to accidentally just, have a second where I rush through things, because then you'll end up with a texture that you regret. And it's really hard to kind of undo things in colored pencil. It's very challenging because they're so waxy, they don't easily erase. You can enlighten them sometimes, but usually it's a real pain. So I'm bringing this through here. I'm lightening up nice and light over here. It will get a tiny bit darker anyway, just because I'm adding another layer, and that's just how this stuff works. Okay, but I'm still using light pressure, so it's nice and blended. Okay, if you look closely, you can see that I haven't filled in my white spot right here, this highlight area. I will do that towards the very, very, very end. Okay, so we're going to leave that there for now. And I just want to make sure that I'm shading so lightly over here while I'm up against it, because I want to make sure that later on when I do shade this in, it is easy to blend because I haven't pressed too hard. Okay, so I want to keep it nice and soft up here until I'm ready to kind of go in and make it darker. Okay, so I'm going to finish adding another layer of this one. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have shaded in my whole sphere again. You can see that it's really starting to come together. Okay, and so I'm pretty happy with how things are going so far. I'm just going to keep adding more layers to it. Okay, I want to keep doing this until it's looking nice and saturated, right? So that means that, like, if I turn this here, it's shiny the whole way through. Okay, so I'm going to keep building those up. I'm going to keep bringing my colors all the way forward. This time back here on this side, I'm pressing down kind of a medium hard pressure to kind of finish this out here. Okay, so you just keep adding more and more and more and more layers. And the more layers you go, the more pressure you can add. So while you are coloring, you can press down a little bit harder. You just want to make sure that once you get to the lighter area, you want to use a lighter pressure. That way your pencil still blends nicely and neatly. Okay, so I'm going to finish this out, and I'm going to come back and we'll talk about the highlight and the shadow. Okay, so not totally done, but I am going in here While I'm building up my layers, now that I have everything where I want it to be, and I'm kind of just working towards having a saturated looking sphere, I usually start with my dark color first to kind of build this up a lot more. And then I'll go to my medium, into my light, which I'll show you guys those steps here in just a second. But what I do for every single color, remember my lightest color, I took it all the way back here. Okay, my darkest color, I'm also bringing pretty close to my highlight. I'm just using a super, super light pressure here. I'm just barely touching the paper. It's just picking up a tiny, tiny bit of pigment here. And when I do that, it helps the sphere look like it all belongs together because of unity. Okay, so I'm just kind of adding a soft, soft layer. It's very, very subtle all along here. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with my middle color too. Okay, so I'm starting over here. I'm going to use a medium hard pressure, and then the closer I get here, the lighter I'm going to get, but I am going to bring this blue all the way up here. Okay. Okay, I am running out of time for today. On my third and final installment, you will see this fully saturated. We'll go over the highlight then, and then we will add the shadow on, and we'll talk about how to get the perfect color for the shadow. Okay, so that'll be on this next and third/final video. I hope this helps you guys out. Happy shading.